To talk more about Justice Breyer is Kevin Russell. He's a partner at Goldstein and Russell. Kevin, thank you for being here with us. You were a former clerk for Justice Breyer. Can you tell us about your experiences working with him?
Sure. He was a great boss to work for. As you just saw in his remarks, that was classic Justice Breyer. That's how, he is on the bench. That's how he is in chambers with his clerks. He is first and foremost, I think, a teacher and a professor, somebody who loves the law, loves to talk about the law, and as an evangelist for the rule of law and for our democracy, which he is a huge fan of and an enthusiastic supporter of. He is somebody who wants to think through complicated legal questions with the assistance of other people, be they young law clerks who he can use as a sounding board, or as was mentioned, wandering down the hall to talk to his colleagues. He is somebody who believes, even in the times of a bitterly at times divided court, that the justices can talk to each other, be civil with each other, and reach consensus some of the time. And he's always hopeful that that can happen.
A great believer in the rule of law. Kevin, can you tell us a little bit more about Justice Breyer's legacy? And also, do you think his decision to retire when he did had something to do with his consideration of what his legacy might be?
Sure. So I think, the justice has written some important opinions, upholding the reproductive rights under Roe versus Wade, and on upholding the Affordable Care Act recently, and some important First Amendment decisions. But I think he will principally be remembered for his methodology. He joined the court at a time when ideas like textualism and originalism were on the rise. But he's not a textualist. He's not an originalist. He is somebody who will take those things into account, but he also cares very deeply about the practical consequences of the court's decision for everyday Americans. As the president said in his speech, he thinks that the court is part of the government as a whole, and that the government has to work well for the people. And that is an idea that is very different from the philosophy of a lot of other judges and justices these days. But it's an important voice that I think will continue to resonate through the years. In terms of why now, I suspect that he had in mind what happened with Justice Ginsburg, where she ended up being replaced by somebody who had very different views than she did about the law. And he probably didn't want that to happen to him, although at the same time, I'm sure it pains him that this is going to be perceived by some as taking into account partisan political realities on the ground, when he very much wants the court to be perceived as nonpartisan and non-political.
Kevin, what are some key cases remaining on the docket you believe are crucial to have rulings on before Justice Breyer retires?
Well, Justice Breyer is going to have already voted on some of the major cases of the term, which have already been argued, including the question about Roe versus Wade retaining its status as the law of the land, and an important case out of New York about gun rights and the state's ability to restrict concealed weapons carrying. He will have already voted on those cases, and those cases are going to be decided while he's still a justice. The court did recently grant certiorari, decided to take a case on affirmative action in law schools and colleges. But I actually don't think that case is going to get decided this term. It's probably going to be argued next term. So probably the most important cases that he will be involved with are the ones that have already been argued.
Kevin Russell, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight into Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer.
My pleasure.